Lasciamo prossimo, druzi moji. So many things set Blender apart as a piece of software, but there's one tool set that really, for me, puts it in a class of its own. It's Blender's magic wand, Grease Pencil, drawing in 3D space. It's an absolutely huge topic, so for today I'll just focus on how to start drawing, just the basics of drawing with Grease Pencil. In upcoming tutorials I'll be getting into full 3D scene creation, but for now let's start with the fundamentals. And the fastest way into it is to go File, New, 2D Animation. Everything goes white, and the idea being that this is a flat, blank piece of paper. I can see a little tiny cursor, and I can start drawing with that straight away. As you'd expect in Blender, I can change the brush radius with the F key. I can also change the opacity or strength with Shift+F. Draws really nice, really fluid, natural, a bit like a really high-end marker pen or something. But what is all this? Let's figure out how this works. Over in the outliner, a Grease Pencil object called Stroke has been created. It's highlighted, meaning it's the active object. Up at the top left, you'll see we're in something called Draw mode, a special mode only available for Grease Pencil objects. The brush tool is selected in the toolbar, and the type of brush is this pencil. You can also see that brush down here in this asset browser. Along the top, we can see a few more properties: material, radius, stroke controls, and so on. At the very bottom of the interface is a timeline or dope sheet. It's in Grease Pencil mode, and we've got two tracks or layers called lines and fills down there, and I can switch them off and on. I'm not going to be animating today, so I'll switch off auto keyframing here with this little red button. Now, over on the right in the Properties editor, under the green Data tab, we can again see those same two layers, and I can, of course, toggle them off and on here too. Right, so I've drawn some lines, but how would I go about making a fill, a solid block of color? Well, let's have a look at the Materials tab. This default 2D animation scene comes with a few material presets. The one the scene launched with was this one, Solid Stroke, which we saw in the top bar before. Let's have a look at its properties. We've got Stroke switched on, and there's a color picker here too. And if I change that, you can see that gets applied to the lines I've drawn, which is just what you'd expect to happen with a standard Blender material. If I were to change any of the normal materials properties, of course you'd see those changes reflected in objects in the viewport. Beneath the stroke settings are the fill ones, and the fill is disabled here, but if I change its color and then I enable it, you can see what happens. I'll just disable that again. Back in the Data tab, I'll lock the lines layer and switch now to the fill layer. Under Materials, let's switch from this solid stroke to solid fill. Here we can see the setting is reversed. Stroke is switched off, fill is switched on. And if I try drawing now, well, you can see that doesn't seem to be making much of an impression. And that's because by default, it has strength or opacity linked to pressure up here in the top bar. For now, I'll switch that off and use Shift+F to set the opacity manually and try drawing again. Cool, so it's quite fast and intuitive, like cutting out a piece of colored paper with scissors, maybe a bit less awkward. Actually, come to think of it, if you really want to go for the cut out scissors look, you could use this Polyline tool here. click and hold on the square, drag down, polyline. Then you can just click, move, click, move, click, move, create a nice rough shape, and then tap enter to confirm. All right, I'll undo that. If I want to add more colors, I could just create more material. So I'll add a new material slot. To fill that material slot, I'll pick the existing fill as a starting point. In fact, I'll give that a better name, gray, dark. And I'll copy that by clicking the little copy icon here. I'll rename that to gray, light. And make the new one a bit lighter. Now I can carry on drawing, I reckon, with the Polyline tool again. That's quite fun. Now the only thing is, I think I want this light grey on its own layer so it's easier to manage. Back in the Data tab, of course, if I switch off the fills layer, well, all my fills disappear. I think I'll rename this layer, in fact, to fill grey dark and add a new layer, fill grey light. Now, how do I move my existing light grey fills to this new layer? Well, I can use edit mode. Here across the top, once you're in edit mode, a bit like with regular geometry, I have the option to select vertices or entire strokes. I'll stick with strokes and just select the ones I want. Actually, this will be easier if I switch off the lines layer. Okay, just click to select, shift click any other ones, and now I can use the M shortcut, which we usually use to move objects between collections, and then just select which layer I want to move them into. Job, I can now work on this layer independently. I think this cloud, like every good face, needs some eyebrows, so I'll hop back into the lines layer, of course unlock it if it's locked, switch back to the solid stroke material, and get drawing. Now, if I want to delete something, I've got a few options. With the delete tool active in the toolbar, I can dissolve strokes in a natural way. I think that's the default mode. A bit like using an eraser. By adjusting the strength setting, you can make the eraser have a soft fall off. Or I can erase point by point, this other mode, to give me a hard edge. Or I can erase an entire stroke in one go. Whichever you choose, it's probably best to have it only affect the layer you're working on. So check this active layer button at the top to protect any other layers. Now, to save flitting around all over the interface, as I've been today, there's a handy right-click menu where I can access pretty much all the settings we've looked at today. Right-click, there you have brush size and strength. I can switch that to be pressure sensitive or not. I can switch layer and also select the material. All right, that's probably enough to get you started. Next time, we'll look at the real power of Grease Pencil, how to use it in 3D space. Thanks for watching. Do zustриči. If you want to get deeper into 3D, check out my courses on 3dfromzero.com. There's a free one. Thanks for watching.